All right, YouTube, it's time for a literary update, but first, a Styx Hexenhammer home life update. I believe that my father this morning had a mild stroke literally right in front of me. He was like, he is a smoker. He was dropping his cigarette. Then I noticed that it was dropping not from his hand but his mouth. I thought at first he was just joking or tired. He wasn't. His speech was slurred. He never fell over, never lost consciousness. Probably a mild stroke, probably not going to be totally screwed up, but he is in the hospital. So I'll be taking, obviously text messages and stuff later. Now, I won't be able to get much done. I need to, see what the hospital says and so forth. But my mom currently is handling that. So, I might as well just keep doing the work that I'm doing because there's really I'm not a medical professional, so there's really nothing I can do to help in the situation other than moral support. So, literary update time. On extraterrestrial evolutionary development, this is one that a number of people were waiting for. I promised to get it out before the end of March, and behold, it is done. Already updated it on the blog in both the My Work section as well, and link in the description to that, and link in the description to the Amazon page, as well as, having its own informational post about its content. This work is sort of follows the video that I made on language development. That human culture can be broken apart into four distinct epochs based largely on the way in which we communicate. It's not all linguistic anthropology. Technically, it is. Once you get into physical writing, like books or tablets or something, it's become partially external to the self. It simply requires humans to make that information. The fifth epoch that I see rising up in the fairly near future, we're talking maybe the next half century or so, is the rise of fully sentient or mostly sentient robots, androids, AI systems, things of that nature. I see it as inevitable. I also see this as something that could be very, very, by the way, positive for the world. It's just a matter of whether it gets used for, exploitation and becomes a very negative sort of dystopian world. Thankfully, by that point, I'll be too old to friggin' care, and most of you will be as well. If you're quite young, you may unfortunately live to see like an iRobot sort of situation under certain possible circumstances. And then there's the sixth epoch where robots no longer require man to even maintain them or improve upon them. They can do that themselves, at which point they become sentient. This gets into robotic ethics. I make a few brief statements on that. This work, though, is not on robotic ethics. I'm going to write a separate work for that later this year. What I see, though, is that the basic premise behind how humans have evolved in this sense, in this communicative sense, should be considered to be extrapolated to any other biological life form with an advanced cognition elsewhere in the universe. That is, assuming that there is life, it competes. Assuming life competes, it develops, it fills niches and so forth. It begins to diversify. There's predation, there's production. All of these different things that we see on Earth within biological development should be replicated anywhere else where there are systems present, a climate and so forth, resources that are conducive to life beginning to spread more than in a very limited sense. You might have planets out there that are less hospitable. All they've got on them is bacteria. That's all they're going to have because there aren't enough resources. And it's too far from its sun. It's too close to its sun. It's a little bit too chaotic or something like that, and so it only ever spawns like bacteria or maybe protists or something like that. But on any planet that's kind of Earth-like, we know that life can survive here and become advanced. It should be at least able to do so on any planet roughly similar to ours. And I think there are probably millions or billions of planets out there like that. Statistically speaking, I say you look at a bell curve, there's no reason to believe we're not somewhere in the middle of the bell curve, both in terms of how advanced life gets when it arises, and in terms of if a planet is habitable, how much life would it have, what form would it take. I think we're probably near the middle. It would be a statistical anomaly if we're not. It's much more likely that we're relatively mundane in the universe. This gets into all sorts of predictions and possibilities. I touch on exopolitics within this work, and I extrapolate that same basic framework of development to extraterrestrial civilizations should they arise. I believe that towards the end of each communicative epoch, there's a risk of wiping one's own culture out and having to start over again. We see this now. We see this with mutually assured destruction. That same competitive urge, the same evolutionary traits that drove us forward, then developed the means to destroy ourselves. At the end of the antiquated age, population density has risen up, and you get epidemics because medicine was at the time largely absent in the form of quarantine, in the form, certainly they didn't have vaccines and things like that. They didn't understand disease fully. And so they get racked with disease. It continuously pushes back against them. They manage to rise above it. We enter the fourth epoch, the developed industrialized age in the 1800s, and now we're here. At the end of this fourth epoch, it's really about mankind being able to wipe themselves out. And I think that extraterrestrials around the same time, when they begin to get that developed, when their technology develops, one of the things they probably develop are weapons. They need to rise above the competitive urge in the sense of destruction, aim it towards instead increasing other technologies instead of wiping itself out, otherwise they fail. And this could solve for the Drake equation. People say, oh, well, why aren't there aliens all over the place? Maybe a lot of them wipe themselves out, never get past the fourth epoch. Many of them may never get past the third. They may be stuck roughly where we were in antiquity. There's the distinct possibility, however small, that we're actually one of the most developed life forms in the universe. I don't necessarily believe that that's true, but it is a possibility. It would explain for some of these things. In fact, maybe we've gone far further than most. Maybe most of the sort of cognitively advanced life forms simply didn't develop the communication. There's actually not enough competition, not enough chaos to cause them to have a reason to do so. They're still stuck in the biological evolution mode only. They don't have language evolution. They don't really have technological evolution because there's no reason for it. We've seen this on our own planet. There's a differential rate of evolution. People who experience more stress, namely Northern European cultures, parts of Asia and so forth, began to develop technology once they hit the ability to do so at a much greater rate because tribes and members of tribes who weren't capable of grasping those things died out. They never replicated. In more climactically stable regions like Africa, the rate of advancement on that technological line in some ways was considerably lower because it wasn't such a pressing need. The need simply wasn't there. Now, evolution isn't need. But my AP biology teacher would, cut my head off if I even said that. What I'm saying, though, is that the lack of stressful external stimuli potentially caused the stalling out of the need to progress technologically. There wasn't a compelling urge within their biology to advance further because that stress wasn't there. And so we can make a bunch of statements about predicting where will the human race go, how do extraterrestrials development, where are they headed in their futures. Beyond the sixth epoch, it's impossible to tell. We might be looking at beyond that, it is a Dyson sphere sort of type 2 species of some sort with extrastellar sort of traveling capabilities. And, maybe we're just far away from the hub of the universe. There could be a spot in this universe, or even in this galaxy, where there are all sorts of extraterrestrials already trading with one another, and they see this area as literally unexplored backwoods territory. It is possible that that's the case. Each successive time that an epoch arises, the development of that epoch is shorter. But when you make the jump to interstellar travel, perhaps things slow down to gradients of millions of years. That could have also explained the lack of extraterrestrials around us. Or there could be a hard cap on technology. That would be very unfortunate because it means we'll probably never visit the stars. We'll probably never explore them. We might send a probe out, get a few pictures. Even that'll take centuries. Other than that, we'd be screwed. We'd be a doomed civilization, and all others would potentially be doomed as well. That'd be rather unfortunate. So, again, link in the description to this work, second link to my books blog, should you choose to peruse my other titles that are available. If you're into sort of the fringe side, there are some other works that I've edited and written that fit roughly into this category. That's about all. Peace out.